They did not have.
Did they heed your advice?
And most of them would insult me because they were getting something in return. But getting something does not mean it's a business.
There's a thing called MLMs, multi-level marketing. Is it the same thing as a pyramid scheme, or is it the same thing as a Ponzi scheme?
You know, with these Ecco Plas, it was so funny that part of the victims, some of them were police officers. Some of them, I think there was one magistrate, another, like there were people that
law enforcement officers.
Yeah, law enforcement officers that you would not believe that they would fall for such things.
This is Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom podcast. We enthuse, we energize, we inspire, and we empower entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs of all stripes in BW and beyond.
Hello, Dumelang, and welcome to another episode of Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom podcast. I'm your host, Mompoloki Lerumo Mogobe, as excited as ever to bring you yet another, enterprising young man, somebody who's going to enlighten you and teach you. We're going to talk criminology. We're going to talk about fraud and how it affects your businesses and how you can position yourself against those things. But a little shameless plug, as always. Let me market my book. Nuggets of Grit is now available at Exclusive Books. It's retailing for $360, I think thereabouts, and it's also available from here. So you're very, very lucky. You get it for $360 now that we have a deal with Exclusive Books for this book. But it's also available from me. The deal I've struck is that you can also buy directly from me. So you come to Mogobe Plaza, or you go to Exclusive Books at the Junction Mall, Airport Junction Mall. You'll get it there. Also, let me ask you to do the honorable thing. Strike that subscribe button, and let me open to you and say that is the only way we can reach more people. That's the only way that these algorithms can have some mercy on us. Part of the reason that the viewership is so low, although we put so much time onto this program, although we employ so many people and we do our best to rejuvenate the economy in this space, apart from sharing valuable information with you, the reason why our numbers are so low is because 2/3 of our viewers fail to strike that subscribe button. So I'm just asking you, don't be among them. Please subscribe, and please also support us as best you can. And thank you for staying with us, some of you, for 5 years. Next month will be 5 solid years that we've been coming to you on Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom podcast. So congratulations to you for staying with us, and congratulations for being part of our journey. Thank you so much. Let me welcome my guest. I think I've lost... oops. These things happen, you know. My guest is Raymond Tshwanelang. Yes, and he will go into greater details. I welcome you to the Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom podcast studio.
Thank you so much for hosting me, Mogobe. I've only watched you when I'm outside Botswana, so it's quite a privilege to be here and to see the men that I've always watched and admired from across the ocean. So I feel privileged. It's like I'm being hosted by some sort of a president or my mentor, really.
Thank you, sir. You're very kind. Just give us a condensed version of your CV, a little bit of background.
Well, my name is Setlomo Raymond Tshwanelang. I'm born and bred here in Botswana, Mahalap and Serowe. Did my undergrad degree in criminal justice studies at the University of Botswana. Completed in 2018, and I did my master's in criminology and criminal justice studies at the University College Dublin in Ireland. Completed in 2020, and been working there and been staying there I think for 6 years. I've also did CFE, Certified Fraud Examination, so I'm a Certified Fraud Examiner. I've also did a number of other fraud-related certifications. So I deal with fraud, I deal with scams, I deal with identity theft, I deal with also social issues. I'm very vocal on social media on a number of these Ponzi schemes, trying to lecture the public, raising public awareness. I'm very vocal on matters of justice and crime, including all, gender-based violence, any other trending issues. I'm always there to throw my 2 cent opinion. Even the one that I'm least qualified on, I try to, to guide the debate around that.
Okay. So, where have you worked? Can you
Yes.
take us through your work experience?
Yes, I have worked for a number of organizations and NGOs. I have interned with Deloitte there in Ireland after completion of my master's. I've also worked with Emphasis. I've also worked with Concern Worldwide. I've also worked with another company that I'm currently working for. I won't mention it, of course, because I'm not here on their behalf. But I've also, I'm also currently running my own part-time business. It's into perfumes and other beauty products.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. Now, let's talk about criminology and fraud detection. Is it a profession? And if so, tell us a little bit about the history of the profession.
In Botswana, we have something called criminal justice. Criminal justice is quite broad. It studies the organizations that deal with crime, really, and the policies in place, whereas criminology is more like subsidiary. It is more focused on crime. So basically, one might even call people who hold criminal justice degree as criminal justician, whereas those who hold criminology as criminologists. Even though, of course, it's both terms can be used interchangeably to mean the same thing, really. In Botswana, I would expect someone with such a degree to work in any government agencies that deal with crime. Talk about Botswana Police, they actually have a module on that. You talk about the military, you talk about DIS, you talk about even BRS, FIA, banks, any other thing. They would always need someone who has an expertise in crime, really, or crime prevention. Even any other organization such as insurances, any other, really. It's it's part and parcel of any institution.
Okay. Now, you call yourself a fraud examiner. Typically, what does that entail?
Basically, it means that I deal with fraud detection. I monitor fraud. I deal with fraud trends. Organizations such as Teleco, for example, they deal with a number of fraud-related activities on a day-to-day basis. Insurance companies deal with fraud-related activities on a day-to-day basis. That's why I come in. And not only that, even the aviation, any other institutions, including banks, they deal with that. So they need, that's where people of my skill sets and experience come in there. They try to, have something in place, systems in place to detect and monitor and prevent such fraud-related activities.
Okay. We'll go industry by industry. You tell me, I mentioned an industry, you tell me generally what kind of challenges they have in the fraud arena and how people like yourselves intervene. Let's start with aviation.
Basically, in terms of the aviation, even though I have little experience on that, is that today someone might, especially with the digital one, someone might claim to have paid maybe a ticket or bought a ticket online, and they might have used maybe a credit card that doesn't belong to them, or they might have tried to use a credit card that doesn't even have funds, or a debit card that doesn't have funds. That's whereby the fraud detection mechanisms would come into play. That's whereby the fraud consultants, or whosoever the title that they use within there, that's where they come into place, and to come up with structures in place that would try and or system in place that would try to prevent these people who are trying to maybe scam the organization in place. Or sometimes they might try to buy multiple tickets. Sometimes they might try to sell tickets. Sort of there are mostly it's about the ticketing system, how to be the ticketing system. That's whereby fraud analyst will come into play.
So this fraud detection analyst, what would he do? How would he detect and prevent that problem? Do they come after the fact, after the fraud has taken place, or before it has taken place?
Ordinarily, they come before the fraud has taken place, and therefore they will try to prevent. Even after it has taken place, they will try to find the ways to, in order to stop it. As you might be aware, with, let's say, for example, an online transaction is not like a 5 seconds thing. It goes through all the process of approval. It goes through all those processes. So it means that there can be still something salvaged when they are in place. Also, there are softwares to assist that. So now, once you are familiar with those softwares, you know what to look for. What fraud signs to look for in terms of transaction, in terms of activities. If it's an online account, what to look for. That's whereby the software is in place. You'd observe those. But someone who has no clue of what to look for, they'll just see software as something that is for decoration, but that's whereby would know what red flags to look for. If any other organizations would have, let's say, maybe keywords, let's say maybe activities, let's say maybe certain profiles, there would be certain profiles that you might look for in terms of, sometimes on a scale of 1 to 5, like many other things that the institution in place would have tried to to say, okay, this type of accounts, let's put them on a red flag, or let's put them on medium, on a low. So it really differs from one organization to the other.
Let's take banks. We are right next to a bank here. What's the role of a fraud detection analyst there?
So in a bank today, for example, and the last year we have had a number of scams in Botswana, whereby scammers today, they might say, oh, pay for these online, or click this link, and then you'd buy. Maybe they would sell something online, or pretend to sell something online. Maybe they would say a tele or a laptop. They might say a laptop, it's 200 pula, and someone would see that as a jackpot. They'll press the link, then it would ask for banking details, as an IBANs and everything, or SWIFT, whatever. That's whereby the fraud detection mechanism should be triggered in place. That's whereby they should be able to, one, block the card, and then maybe get in touch with the victim or the customer to say, hi, we have noticed that you have tried to, according to our system in place, this is a fraudulent website. Are you aware of that? Or have you tried to make that? That's whereby they come into place. They try to prevent their customers.
Just on that point of the link, all of my children, they all say without exception, don't ever click on a link. Is that great advice? And if it is, why is it so?
It is both ways. So before you can press into link, mostly we call them phishing links, you simply have to hover around that. Sometimes you look at whether it has 2 padlocks there, HTTPS, PS.
Take us through that slowly.
Yes.
You said it very fast.
So mostly with the links, one, you look at who sent you that link. Is it something that you solicited? If I send you a link that you did not ask for, then you don't need to open it, because you never asked for it. Why am I sending it to you? Even if, for example,
the typical one will say, your Facebook is not search and optimized. We can quadruple your viewership. This is the problem. They will actually show you why the underlying things. Click on this link so that we can help you or guide you so that you can get optimized. And my understanding is that a lot of people have had their Facebooks or their, whatever platform, what is the word for it when you take over someone's page?
Yes, it's more like an account takeover, really. Sort of, you can say identity theft, you can say account takeover. The general word is account takeover. You see, with these,
it's been hacked.
Yeah, some people would say hacked, but the hacking thing can be more like 2 ways. The victim can also be party to the hacking. Some hackings can happen without you being party to, like someone just simply trying to say, okay, doing general emails until they get hold of your account. Maybe they've seen your email somewhere, then they try to hack into your email. Then from there, then they can hack into your social media account. But those are serious hackers. But most of these chances, what they do is simply they send you, I'd say, spam links whereby people would fall for those things. I mean, we never asked for that. No person can just.
Just last month, Bank Gaborone, and I think this is public knowledge, they had been hacked and people were posting pornographic material on their Facebook page, and it was just terrible. And I think they were able to stop it fast. But I think it had to do with something like that taking place.
Yes, definitely. It looks like maybe the administrator of the page may have pressed some link, because these social media pages, for every company really need a social media page whereby customers or members of the public can reach out and say, hey, I'm having a problem with the bank, and then they can easily deal with their query. Sometimes maybe the person would have sent something and then by mistake they would have pressed that link. That link, once you press it, it simply extracts the logging in details, and then therefore you would have lost your page. It will mean that now that's whereby now the IT personnel will come in and try to retrieve the page. And for a company like the one that we just mentioned, it was so bad for the image or the brand, because now as customers they might start wondering how safe are the mechanism in place when really
it affects the reputation of the company.
For the reputation of the company, it was so terrible. But I'm just glad that they were able to navigate through the waters, the sandy waters, and get back that page. But it means that also the protocols in place, they are not like the administrator has not maybe been trained that much on what to look for really. Even if it's a known customer that someone has sent you a message today, like I've spoken to many banks or many institutions via my own social media account, I do not think that if today I'm to send some link to them, I do not expect them to open that link. Anything else, they wouldn't say send us the link. They would simply say, okay, can you take a picture, for example, and then share, as if you're saying maybe you're having a problem with your app. It shouldn't be something to deal with the link or go in there. No. That one is say, okay, then you can come to the bank. Or even if it is a link, someone has to hoover through and see where does this link them to. Sometimes you can simply copy it, open it on a different browser.
Is the link the only way that fraudsters can infiltrate your system or enter into your account or hack your account, or there are other ways?
There are multiple ways of trying maybe to guess the password, trying to maybe snoop over someone's shoulder to look into their system. But with the link one, it's more like efficient. It's more like it's
very effective.
It's very effective and also time saving. Like literally, the victim will be doing things for you while you are remote, while you are not aware. So it's more like we call them clickbait. Really, it's more like a baiting them to that, and then it's just like putting maybe slaga or something at the farm, and then the animal will just walk through that. So it's more like to me, I believe that it's the most
it's an easy trap.
Yeah, it's an easy trap
for hackers.
Yes,
I think they're probably sending thousands and thousands of
to number
messages,
of victims,
and they work on it's a numbers game.
Yes, it's a numbers game.
They recognize that there's a sucker somewhere. 1 out of 1,000 will fall for it.
Yes, 1 out of 1,000, and that's a jackpot for them. Because some of them, after they do that, some can even, want to extort you. I remember where I come from in Ireland. I think 2 years ago, if I recall, and then we call it HSE. It's more like the health sector or the health board. Their system was also hacked, and actually they said something to deal with Russian mafia or whatever. And ordinarily those hackers, because those ones are professional, once they would want money from you to give you the website or whatever. And that thing, it had more like personal details of patients and every other Irish citizen or non-Irish citizen. So it was so bad.
Do institutions respond to such blackmails? In other words, do they pay the ransom?
Ordinarily, most institutions would tell you that no. Some do pay. Some
they
don't.
Pay without notifying the public.
Yes, because obviously nobody would want for the brand image. But also the reason why some of them might pay is that the hackers sometimes would have had access to the information that isn't for public consumption. So it means that times you look at, you balance on the balance of probability. What does it cost if this man says maybe they need $1 million or they need this, and that kind of information, if it goes public, it might really destroy our company. And then some people might just simply take the easy way out. Some people might just say, you can go ahead. And then they might try to recover their systems in place. But just that falling for scams or hackers is something that is really terrible for organizations.
We mentioned the aviation industry. We talked about the banking industry. What about government? What are their vulnerabilities? How vulnerable is government?
At present moment, I would say ours isn't vulnerable. Reason being that today, if I send an email to the government, I need to call, hey, so and so, I'm sending you an email. Check your email. Then say, yeah, I've seen it. Or fax. So we are still way behind.
I don't think we have fax anymore. I
hope
hope not. I'll be shocked.
Yes.
I'll be shocked to see a fax machine.
Yeah, so therefore, in terms of the way we do things here in Botswana is that we still rely on paper applications. We still do things manual. The system is quite manual. You see, with manual one, it's hard to fall for scammers, but only people who would say, let's say maybe forged documents, that's whereby things come in.
In other words, the inside job.
Yeah, sort of people who would, even if it's not inside, people who forge documents, people who leave a trail. You see, with the paper there is something we call paper trail. So it's something that someone would bring documents to you, some of them forged. So it's more like there's check and balance. When you do something manually, it's more like counting cash by hand. You can see, but someone, when they send you maybe digital or going through bank statement, it's quite a bit of a job. But counting cash is quite something. That is why I believe that the government to hack most of the system is still manual based. Even today, when you go and report cases at Botswana police, they come with a paper and you fill that paper manually. Whereas in other countries, no, it's just the computerized everything. So here we haven't computerized most of the system. Of course, we have systems like GABs which might be vulnerable to that, but I'm not sure how, because I've never worked in Botswana and I've never dealt with much of the systems as in the government from that. But I've realized that here, that is why even things are slow, because things are quite manual and they need someone to approve, someone to do sort of, there's check and balance mechanism in place.
Let me tell you the challenge that I personally had in Botswana. People took my pictures, my identity, and they duplicated a Instagram page where they added a 1. They had my name, Mompoloki, and added 1. And they posted my things, and the public was diverted there, and then they enticed one or two people, in fact a number of people, telling them that they are able to get them forex deals or multiply their money very fast, and communicating as though it is me talking to those people. Because of the brand we've built and the name recognition, those people fell for it, and some people ended up giving money away on this understanding that they are dealing with legitimate sources. And every time they paid money, they were told that for you to release that money, you need to pay more money, until eventually they said, Mr. Mogobe, this is too much. Some of them came to see me. Some of them I had to post online to warn them, and became quite a bit of drama over the last 3 years. The frustrating part is that when I eventually got to the police and informed them about this problem, the police officer who was investigating the case told me in no uncertain terms that, Mr. Mogobe, the problem is that the people who stole your identity are trying to defraud me as a police officer investigating the matter, and all their details, it was very funny, all their details, it was funny and shocking at the same time, and all their details are false and fraudulent. So as a police officer, I'm not able to track them down. Phone number is forged and false. ID number is forged and false. Addresses are forged and false, and they are not able to track them down. So it's a source of frustration, to the point where I'm asking myself, what can my Irish criminologist friend do to assist me?
Basically, the things that people need to question things. I have to look at, does a Mogobe offer such things on a day-to-day basis? You have
Like
to look-
Forex.
yes.
I've put in no uncertain terms in my social media.
Yes,
No Forex,
including
no.
LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And also that they need to look at, for example, Ramogobe's page would likely have over 1,000 following, and it would have likely been there for ages and ages. And many of these, like the one that had one, it meant that it was a new page. It was more like identity theft. So therefore, sometimes I'd say there's a bit of a public ignorance. Of course, we do not blame them for crimes, because criminals always want new ways of beating the system. So, but one of the things that I do not know how the police officers here would investigate such, most investigators would try and use the IP address. One, I locate where those scammers are, or where they are based, and then try to track them down using that and hack into. It's more like hack
How
hack
does
into
this
that
IP
system.
address help?
The IP address is just that where are they based. Once you can know where they're based, then you can try to hack into their own system and then know, okay, fine, they might have had used an account, maybe they would have used someone's banking account, and how do they get that money from that account to themselves? One way or another, it should lead the investigating officer to those criminals. It's quite, of course, a very, very detailed and very long and time consuming and exhausting investigation process, because it's more like you are trying to follow the money or follow whatever the leads. For example, if they are trying to scam him, he might just simply, okay, give them $50 or whatever, and then see where does that money goes to. If it goes to, let's say, Sethomo's account, my account, maybe they have used it, or maybe because they would ordinarily use someone's account, or sometimes if it's not Forex or whatever, these digital or Bitcoin, whatever that the person would have, then follow how does that money leave Sethomo's account to them. That's whereby then you can catch them. But it also, you see, the problem also with these scammers is that sometimes they'll be based in a different country, whereby it's more like a cross-country crime, whereby it includes many laws, agencies. It's really expensive when you are investigating scammers when they are not based in the country, when they are based in a different country. It means that it requires a very, very large scale operation, because it means that you have also to share information with the police in that country, include Interpol, for example, extradition. It's a very, very long process of investigating. So ordinarily, what we often advise is that the banks should be the ones that try to prevent such transactions from happening. Really, it should always monitor certain accounts. If they are doing activities in Botswana, for example, people are always paying, and this is a foreign account. That's whereby they should try and find out what is it being used for, what type of business is it into that particular country. Like, for example, in Ireland, the mechanisms are such that sometimes they'll be selling services, and then they would want you to buy it. The banks will be the one to call you saying that website, we have noticed that it's a fraud related or being used for fraud related activities. That's why the banks come in. That's why they stop. Because with the police, for example, the police do not always stop crime. They investigate the crime that has occurred. And investigating a crime that has occurred is more expensive, time consuming than preventing crime. So spending such, it requires even manpower. A single officer, I don't think they would be able to investigate such. You need IT personnel. You need a whole lot of people, software, people who can even try to hack into those hackers. Like there was one case, mostly what I'm saying, there's something we call 911, I think. Yahoo boys, the ones mostly in Nigeria and other countries whereby they're into that. The Americans have this system whereby they investigate them. Last year, I think, or 2 years back, they caught many of them, some of them who were living lavish life on Instagram, and they had such a system that they worked, even because most of them were based in Dubai, whereby they even worked with Dubai police offices to arrest those and extradite them to America, whereby they were tried for these criminal activities.
They're doing time now.
Yes,
hopefully.
most of them are doing time in America right now.
That's very interesting. Now, as a worldwide phenomenon, how serious is this is the crime situation or the fraud situation across the world?
In terms of fraud, around COVID, the number of fraud-related activities increased. Part of it is that people were staying in homes, and it meant that more businesses were going digital. When they went digital, they didn't have mechanisms in place to spot and stop fraud-related activities. It means also that customers were not even aware, or they were not taught and informed that to be aware or vigilant. So that's whereby now number of criminal activities increased. And also part of it is that unemployment is increasing on a daily basis. It means that more people are resorting to criminality. And right now, snatching people's wallets is no longer lucrative as scamming people. If you snatch my wallet, I probably have a bank card, I don't have money inside there. So it means that criminals have to also evolve. Now they go into scamming people than running with people's purse. If you run with people's purse, you might find 50 kula only there, while the money is inside the bank card. So it means that you have also to grow your criminal activities or enterprise, and now you can do into scamming, because that's where the real money is. And now you realize that, okay, with scamming, it's more like a career. Basically, it's psychological in nature. You try to exploit the people's vulnerabilities and weaknesses, especially the older people and also the young. They are not like that, they're too trusting. So now that's whereby you can have access to their money and everything.
Well, there's one that is taking shape, isn't it, where they kidnap somebody. I think the South Africa has seen a lot of this. Then they lock you up in the boot, and next thing they keep you there for you to keep releasing the money. There are daily limits, so they would take your cards, and they would have one sitting at the bank, and then you'd give the card to one who's physically holding you, and if the money doesn't come out in the other end, they make you suffer physical pain. I wonder whether there's anything one can do to guard against that one.
You see, I do not know how much of the systems. I've always had something like that, even in Botswana, whereby people would say that they have been maybe defrauded by someone and they want to withdraw their money. Where I come from, that person, in every ATM, there is usually a CCTV footage. So you'd wonder how they're able to beat the CCTV cameras there to withdraw such money. I mean, if they have, my card should know that.
Actually, they would have your number. If they would have your ATM number, that's enough.
That's the ATM number. Is that once you go withdraw the money at the ATM, the bank would definitely have somewhere that the money was withdrawn, maybe at Airport Junction or wherever. Therefore, that's where the investigation can go. But in terms of, however, of what should be done to stop these, one of it is that people need to have more trusted contact. And even if they are banking, maybe a personal banker or something that will help them so that they can detect if someone has been withdrawing money on these. Of course, like you are saying, if there's a daily limit, they try to beat the daily limit by, okay, if it's let's say 10,000 per day or 100,000.
So it's up to that person's systems and relatives, when they don't see him.
Yes.
They have to dash to the bank and say, this person has not been seen. Can you please block his account?
Yes, definitely. Whenever,
but I don't know whether the bank will listen to a third party.
Yes, a third party, it's quite difficult. Also, if it's kidnappers, for example, if I call, let's say you call me, the kidnappers might say, oh, just tell them that you are still fine, you are still at one of your friends' place, come up with a story and give you the phone. So it means that it's quite a complicated system that is quite hard to beat. It's always good to prevent. In terms of preventing, is that people need to always be vigilant whenever they are driving, wherever they are, and try to see how they can protect themselves against that. But unfortunately, crime or criminals will always devise new ways and new tactics of trying to beat the system and even people. So it's something that blaming the victims, it won't solve the situation. It's that we need more like policing activities in place, or the police needs to always try to have visibilities in place whenever there is a building that they are not aware of what activities are going there. check it there, see what's going there. Maybe they might ambush them or something.
I want us to talk a bit about pyramid schemes and specifically Ponzi schemes. What can you tell us historically about these schemes and what's happening now?
With Ponzi schemes, there was a man back, I think, in the 1920s or 1900s. He was called Charles Ponzi. He is the inventor of these, or the person who these Ponzi schemes would later be named after. So with Ponzi schemes, mostly some of them work by a way of investment. Okay, invest the 2 pula, get it at 5 pula. With pyramid schemes, most of them, they work by recruiting members. The more you recruit, the higher you go and the more returns. But how it works is that the money from me pays you. The money from you pays the other person. Is our money until I think it reaches the 4th or the 5th cycle. Then it collapses because it's simply the money that you are investing that comes to. It's taken from Peter to Paul. There is no assets, no liabilities, nothing that is backing that. It's simply a pseudo scheme that many people fall for, and that's how it makes. And the most interesting part when you ask about that, now in Botswana, because now is the history of these Ponzi schemes. In Botswana, there's been quite a number of schemes like that. Just 2 years ago, there was one called Ecco Plas.
Ecco Plas is pyramid scheme.
Yes, these Ecco Plas had mimicked an existing business. The business is in the US. They deal with solar panels and other things. So they've created these websites that looked like it is a company in the US, whereby people would lodge money. Then every day they press working, and then they would be able to get something, maybe 5 pula or 100 pula, and hundreds of people joined. They were paid with other people's money, and then the more you invest, the more the returns. So it went on. Of course, I wrote a number of things on social media warning people that this is a pyramid scheme. The number
Did they heed your advice?
And most of them would insult me because they were getting something in return. But getting something does not mean it's a business. And that's because one of the things that I found that they didn't have any offices. Anything that they had there was false information from the beginning. And then eventually what they did is that more people joined, and others who joined earlier invested more, and then they ran away with people's money. Luckily, others, when the police were involved, because they were using also people's accounts, personal accounts. Others that they recruited, they were used. Right now, there was still an ongoing case with the government trying to intervene so that the money that was withheld in other people's accounts can at least be maybe distributed to victims. Because
what did they tell people they had to gain? Is it just doubling or tripling your money?
Yes, it's more like tripling the money.
There's no investment?
They told them that they are investing, they are buying solar panels and everything. They are into the companies into that, so that people need to invest. But it was a too good.
But you won't see a solar panel coming to your house.
No, you won't. It's more like an online investment scheme that trick people into believing that this is a real company in the US, whereby more like I'm buying a bit of shares, whereby every day I'm getting something, and mine all I do is press working, and then you get something in that. And a lot of people invested. A few of them, because they were able to take money from Pearl to Peter to Paul, and they were able to get a little bit of something. Someone would say, I invested with 1,000 and I got 300 pula. And that person will go and recruit others. And a lot of Botswana lost money through that. And prior to that, there has been similar schemes, like almost every 2 years in Botswana or in any society. There is always a new pyramid scheme that is coming.
Why are people so gullible?
As human beings, we like to grow. We like to check new opportunities or try new opportunities. Unfortunately, most of us, we want to be millionaires or multi-millionaires or rich overnight. That's whereby the greed side of us.
Is it in the genes?
Yes, we are.
Is it in our psyche? Where does it come from?
It's part of humanity. We want more. Every day we want more, no matter how much we have. Even Elon Musk want more. All of us, we want more. We don't want little. And that's whereby...
It can be a good thing to desire more, but want it legitimately and properly.
the problem with the greed is that if someone presents because with scammers or pyramid schemes, they do not tell you that it's a pyramid scheme. They present to you as it's a business, a legitimate business that you are just investing, that everything is formal. They even make it look formal, like the Ecco Plas, they even went around schools donating to schools, shoes and other things. They even had sort of employees, like they made it look like a formal, legitimate business, such that to any
I thought you said they didn't have premises, but it was able to.
Yes, they were able because it is an online thing. I think they even once rented with those who were employees who did not even understand the operations of business. Literally people that they're naive victims that they recruited. So they made it look like here they have some sort of a branch and that their offices are in the US when they did not even have those. So that's how they were able to extend their visibility.
There's a thing called MLMs, multi-level marketing. Is it the same thing as a pyramid scheme, or is it the same thing as a Ponzi scheme?
With multi-level marketing schemes,
because it also involves a lot of recruiting.
Yes, with multi-level marketing schemes and pyramid schemes, both are true, but they may look similar. With multi-level marketing scheme, for example, a relative example will be Herbalife. It is something legitimate, but ethical-wise, you might question it. Ordinarily, with multi-level marketing schemes, they have a product behind that, like the Herbalife products. You recruit, you go up, but whether the Herbalife products work or not, the science behind that's the one that is questionable. So they always have a product. Prior to even Herbalife, there was something, I think it's Amway in South Africa. I
used to be a member of Amway for 9 months.
For 9 months.
Around 2002.
Yes, I know that one of my siblings was. There is a product behind that. Prior to that,
lots of soap, lots of tapes, lots of things, yeah.
Yes, nice things. And also...
And they get powerful speakers. That's why I met John Maxwell for the first time.
You see?
They're able to get very influential people to come and speak at their conferences.
Yes. And besides that, even our moms, I believe that some of them had even Tupperwares. There was something Tupperwares. The companies deal with that. Even with some of these perfume that are multi-level marketing, actually, it's quite common in South Africa. Most South African companies, they have that. So there is a product behind that. The only thing that is quite questionable about is the ethics, is the profitability of that. But usually they are legitimate. They are not illegal. Whereas with pyramid schemes are illegal. That's the only difference between that. And also that pyramid schemes often do not have a product or a service behind them. It's just they exist in a vacuum. Even sometimes offices, they do not have offices. Whereas with that, the Herbalife and other product, they make money through also the products and through members joining. So it means that is why they say multi-level marketing system scheme. So it means that they generate profits from all angles. That is why they're able to. Even some of them would even have proper offices. They would have the systems in place, structures in place.
Tell me about your writing. You say you write quite a lot about these issues. How do you target an issue, and what have you written on?
I have written on a number of things, and actually I think I have over 130,000 followers on my Facebook alone. So
that's nice.
On any topic that I feel, maybe it's about crime that is trending, if it's gender-based violence, if it's something that is brought before social media, I comment. I'm a social scientist before anything else, so I always have my views on everything. I drop my views on a number of things, that even the ones that I'm not qualified for, I always challenge myself. And yeah, so I have written on a number of things, thousands and thousands that I have.
Is there a particular one that really sparked the attention of the public?
Mostly the public are always interested to hear my views whenever it's an issue of crime, maybe the one that is trending on social media. That's whereby, or if there is a new investment schemes, people saying, okay, we need 50 people buying property, this and that. Whenever there is an advert, people will tag me to have my say on that.
What would you normally say about such adverts?
Most times...
What are the cautionary tales?
Times I'll just simply say, if it's of public, I weigh whether it is of public interest or not. And if it is not of a public interest, I let it be. But if it's something that has been ongoing, like for example, actually, when you're asking me about the one that people remember me with, and I also remember myself with, There was one, I think 2 years back or 3 years back. The person was saying that people need to put money into them. They were running a garage in Mogobe for buying people cars, and they were advertising using social media influencers in Botswana. So what happened was that people would like put money 5,000, 3,000 into that, and then after 6 or 12 months they'll buy them a car. Then I questioned that scheme. Things that I said, of course, made many people saying, oh, because so and so had gotten that car. Then I told them that no, this is quite a risky business model, in the sense that if I put money into that person's account, what happens if the company collapses? How secure are your money? Why not put in the bank? Does it have, or even other policies? What is it?
So
that
they would gather deposits from people.
Yeah, from people.
And
well, of course, I'd say they would buy stock, whatever. But it became
stock as in cars.
Yes, and cars, and sell
certain
them.
people would get.
Yes, basically what happened was that it was more like buying a car at an installment. But at an installment that you don't have that car, the car would be bought after you complete the payment. And when you read the terms and conditions, you'd ask yourself, okay, what happens if someone dies before they complete payment? What happens if they are unable to pay? Would they be refunded? The policies or the terms and conditions in place were quite cumbersome. They were quite not clear.
Cumbersome, for instance?
Like they did not address those issues. What happens in the event someone dies, or in the event that the company collapses, or in the event that the car, let's say you are paying for a car and you are saying that you want a 50,000 pula car. Once you complete paying, cars in Japan or wherever, they won't be 50,000 pula. Who is going to meet you halfway? Or if they are 45,000,
because of what, inflation?
During COVID, it meant that transportation of vehicles around COVID and the fuel prices, transporting a product that you don't have, the prices change. Even the BURS, the system always changes. Sometimes the taxes can go high, and not only the taxes, sometimes even the port storage goes high. Even the cars there in Japan, the prices can go up or high. And so even the security.
And you would have been paying for what, 2 years? Or
sometimes, mostly it was about 12 months.
12 months.
Yes,
okay.
Some of them even 2 years. But they made it look lucrative when it wasn't, when there was nothing. You see, and then I told them that if had these men bought stock and then kept here and said, this is your vehicle, you have to pay for it and get it, then that's whereby maybe it will make sense. But if they do not have it, by the time you've completed payment, either the company will have ran away, which eventually it collapsed. Many people have opened cases against the company or the person, and it was quite a bit of a scandalous situation that I have warned people that it's quite a risky investment, that if it was possible, many people would have gone for it. It was a risky business model, and that to me was more like it was just a scam, taking people from money without any form of security.
So there are so many scams around. I mean, there's one where a lot of micro lenders were knocked by people borrowing money, and then they would have just a series of these false identities where when the micro lender checks out, is this person employed? Yes, there's an employer who answers. Or is this salary correct? Yes. And then they check at the bank, does this person have such and such a bank account? Yes, everything checks out because it's a syndicate. And I met 2 or 3 micro lenders who were taken to the cleaners. Are you familiar with this kind of schemes?
Yes, but not at the level at which you describe. I've met others who have been beaten by these people, but for them is that when they did background check, they found that the person doesn't exist. But you see, with micro lenders, is that because they'll tell you that a loan is approved in 48 hours, 24 hours. When in place, they do not even have the mechanism of doing the background check. They just simply rely on that, okay, a company, let's say Setlhomo company, my company, they call me, they confirm. They rely on the word that they get. They don't make their own word. With investigations, you don't rely on the word that you get.
You have
For
to
example,
independently
yes,
verify
due diligence there and see. For example, one thing that you might do, even these days we are living in an era of social media, you might even say, okay, this person present themselves as so and so, let me check them on social media, let me see if there will be anything. For example, we have things like LinkedIn. Of course, it's not used that much in Botswana, But
Well,
just the
I
trying-
use it. Me
yeah,
and
I
you,
know
we
you
use
use it, and you're quite influential there. So, but trying to find a bit about a person that indeed they are who they claim to be, at least to the certain level. But the problem is that they are always looking into giving out money.
Because that's how they make money also, because of the exorbitant, high interest
Yeah,
rate.
high interest
Let me
and
not say
giving it in
exorbitant.
a very short period of time. Unlike the bank will take long to give you.
Okay. Now, I always ask my guests whether they have a story of triumph and success in their field that they want to share, where they interacted with the market and scored big, or had a sense of fulfillment in what they do.
With me, I haven't had much success or failures because I only completed my studies in about, I'd say technically 2 years ago. So even though in between I was always, working a little bit. So I haven't, right now that's when I would say I'm on my second year or a year of doing things, a year and 8 months of doing things. So I haven't had within my career that I'd say these are my successes.
What about fulfillment?
The fulfillment part, I think, was doing my master's. That's the fulfillment part. And
Masters in
something that-
what?
In criminal justice, because it's not offered in Botswana as a master's degree. So that was the fulfillment part. And also learning about fraud at a very broader level, and understanding more the systems of the world. And yeah, that's, I would say, the fulfillment. But I haven't fulfilled most of my dreams and other things that I feel like I can say, you know what, I have a story to paint that I fulfilled this. I'm still at the building phase.
But is there a notorious experience or a worthy experience that you mind sharing? I'll give you an example. In my case, when I did, forensic science in Edinburgh, I'll never forget this. That particular day, we were taken to the morgue or the mortuary, where we were shown the body of a businessman who had that very morning put a tailpipe in his car, or reversed the tailpipe and opened the thing and killed himself. And he was just approaching rigor mortis. And that's a thing that has stuck in my mind seeing that white body stuck there, and the businessman having killed himself that morning in Edinburgh. It's a memory that freaks me out sometimes. Do you have such an experience?
I think the experience was seeing my father speaks. He took his own life. That's the only memory that I think I'd say stuck with me.
Were you present?
No, I wasn't. People showed me pictures, like they found him hanging and they took pictures, and then I found. So that's the thing that stuck.
Your very own father?
My own father.
What had happened?
He took his own life in 2012. So then I was still in senior school. So that's the only thing that I'd say stuck with me even to date. And but I think I've made peace with it. But just that
is there something that you feel you could have done that you...
I feel like I'd have maybe spoken sense into his head.
If you're around?
If I was around, I'd have stopped
Were you
him.
at school or something?
Yes, I was at school, but I was also no longer staying with him. But that's the thing that stuck with me. And also that it was someone who was loved and a very great man. So that's something that I felt like, life is quite a fragile thing. That made me realize that you need to, use your time wisely. And also it made me realize there's a lot that people don't speak about here in Botswana, which is mental health, which is quite something that drain a lot of men. And we do not have platforms whereby men can freely talk or freely cry or be seen broken. So they hide a lot. So that's something that made me realize a lot about things in places that we do lack in our country or our society.
Okay. That's a very touching story. Thanks for sharing that. I'm very sorry to hear that. Now, in general, where are people getting wrong in your field of fraud detection? Where are Botswana getting it wrong, and what are the simple things that they should be doing by way of self-protection that they are not?
Botswana, I think they are blind to the truth. Botswana are an easy catch, but easily trust, or they're gullible, but do not ask the why, when, who, why. So they don't ask, that too submissive to everything. So that's where they get it wrong. In life, you should question things. Even when they are not questionable, you should always learn to question everything. I think our culture raise us in such that we believe everything that we come across, in everything, from religion, from everything, is that even at home you are taught not to question your mom or your dad. Our culture makes us to be quite submissive to everything, so we need to liberate ourselves from such thinking and always question things. Once we start questioning things and saying what if, then we can achieve more. And also, not only that, we should always be ready to lose something in life in order to gain more. Because sometimes if you have always why, it might stop you from growing as a human being. But
so it's difficult to strike that balance sometimes.
yes, it's quite difficult to strike that balance. You really need to discern. You really need to have a bit of wisdom in order to strike a balance between the...
Yes, so what specifically can we do? What should we be able to do to... For instance, let's talk about the phishing situations, the identity theft situations, the general wave of scams that are hammering us left, right, and center. What can we do?
What needs to be done is for us to listen. If someone tells us this doesn't look like it's the right thing, we try to find out whether it's not the right and ask other people. The problem is that in Botswana, if someone tells, like, I'm always commenting on those, and other people say I'm jealous of them, and then when I ask, what am I jealous of? If I was jealous, I'd be investing like you. But that shows that I'm not jealous. I'm simply telling you that, hey, beware, this thing doesn't look like it is. If it's too good, then it's likely not to be true. So we should always question things. Really, with me, I believe in questioning things. That's what people should do. And people also should try to, at least find out if that organization exists. Things like LinkedIn, things like Facebook, do not always rely on business that only has Facebook and has maybe WhatsApp as that thing, especially when it deals with millions or thousands and hundreds of thousands. They need to have at least a bit of an office. They need to have at least a bit of an existence. If it's, however, small money or small business, that's whereby you'd understand. But some of these things that are called themselves investors, even when you try to do a background check on them, they do not have anything, any record, any location, anything that they would have dealt with. Is that people are just trusting. Some of them, of course, may be seemingly registered as companies, but not compliant as well. Because I remember with Ecco Plas, I think it was FIA or one organization, it was more like not registered with them as a whatever.
It's a financial.
Yeah, so it did not meet the compliant part and everything. So most people need to check if it's something that deals with finances. There are all obviously organizations that deal with that beyond registering as a business.
Our viewers are entrepreneurs and business people. So from the point of view of an entrepreneur and a business person, what systems can they put in place to protect their businesses from falling victim to fraud and to scams?
It really, because most softwares are quite expensive, it depends on the needs of the organizations. So it's always good to bring a consultant to check what's your needs.
What the vulnerabilities
Yes,
are.
the vulnerabilities, and also to train staffs in places. Some of them, they can do them on YouTube, on Coursera. Some of them, they are free online, that they can always sort of a fraud awareness week courses.
What are those programs? Coursera, can you mention them again?
The Coursera, it's these online platform that offer short courses on fraud awareness, and also even on YouTube. Coursera, the problem is that you pay for them for subscription, but YouTube also has free ones that you can always, fraud awareness courses. Some of them are clips for 5 minutes. So organizations should always, run that fraud awareness week, maybe once in a month or once in 6 months, so that employees are aware of fraud trends. They can always also bring a consultant in place to teach their employees about being aware, even in their personal life, because most organizations, they would only maybe have systems in place to to help themselves, not their employees. Their employees would suffer, would fall for these scams even outside work. With these Ecco Plas, it was so funny that part of the victims, some of them were police officers, some of them, I think there was one magistrate, another, like there were people that you
law
would not-
enforcement
yeah,
officers.
law enforcement officers that you would not believe that they would fall for such things. And some of them were respected members of community that you would believe that with their experience they wouldn't fall for such. It is because they were not trained even at that place of work to be aware of that. It's more like finances. Companies would always bring, maybe people in terms of budgeting would help their employees so that they do not suffer from financial embarrassment, teach them how to balance work and their finances, budgeting and all those things. So they need to also to provide such for their employees, so that their employees can be trained on how to not to fall for these scams and fraudsters.
Yeah. Some of the viewers may be wondering where the money is in this profession of yours. Let me ask you, where is the money? Where can we make money? Is this a lucrative profession?
It is not. You see, when you fight crime, the crime has money, but fighting it has no money. Even the institutions like police, the police has no resources to fight crime. Fighting crime has no reward. It's more like civil
National
service.
service,
Yeah,
civil
so
service.
it's more like you are just doing it for free. So therefore, there is no reward in that. The reward that we get is the fulfillment that I have saved.
Even
many.
setting up a detective agency?
Yes, because one thing that, for example, whenever a crime occurs, people run to the police. They do not run to detective agencies. Only, of course, in countries like America, that's where they are progressed to that point. But in Botswana, people run to the police.
But there's a few agencies.
But those deal with corporates. They do not deal with individuals. And with corporates, sometimes they prefer not to outsource their services. Sometimes they would want internal services. They would employ those people to come and be employees, not to be there. So in order to penetrate to that scale whereby you can be their consultant, it's not an easy catch in Botswana. They would prefer maybe to have someone as their employee, because it means that they'll be paid cheaper than if they were to be a standalone. So, and also in our country, there is so much red tapes in terms of private detective. It means that everything you need is, for example, right now in Botswana, we do not have Freedom of Information Act. It means that you can't just see a plate number here and then Google it to see who is the owner of that. You have to go through the transport. Or sometimes even just doing it with someone that we do not have a proper procedure of getting information in Botswana, making private detective quite a difficult task to do. Like, you do not have access to information about things, just like randomly a plate number. Someone can hit my car or can do something or snatch my bag and run with a plate number. It becomes I have to go to the police or even the private detective. I have to seek a court order in order to have access to that information, even a simple thing as that. So that makes even the investigation, they prolong them, and by the time maybe they have found the suspect, a lot of things would have been lost.
All right. So what do you love about this profession of yours, fraud examination and criminology?
You learn new things every day. You learn how people steal every day, the psychological part. You also have to deal with victims who are broken, to see them in that state. It also teaches you about sympathy, not to judge victims, to be on their shoes all the time, and not to blame them. And it also gives you that thing whereby whenever you're walking around, you just realize that, there are fraud loopholes in every organizations that you are working around. Say, I believe that there are a lot of ways of beating the system in this bank or in this place. Like it makes you being aware of things around you.
Wow. Well put. Now let's grab that crystal ball and look into the future. You've noticed that I like asking my guests that question. How does the future look 2 decades down, even 3 decades down, for your brand and for your name and for your social media presence, all of that?
I think social media would have retired and I would have built quite a profession outside social media. I believe that social media is quite draining.
Draining.
Draining. It means that you meet experts on social media who are not experts. Everyone is an expert there, such that even when you tell someone about something that you know, that you experience on, they will tell you something they have read on Google or that they have experienced and their personal subjective experience. So therefore, I think down the line, I'll just want, maybe I'll be running one of the largest fraud consultancy here in Botswana or in South Africa or in Ireland. And I'll be trying to help members of the community and organizations on how to protect themselves from fraudsters and scammers. And that's, I think, I see myself as that person in 20 years' time.
At least you don't see yourself running out of work.
Yes.
Because there's always something
Yes,
happening.
the crime all evolve and there's always criminality. Where there's money or where there are people, there's always crime.
Yeah, but I asked you earlier whether there's money in it. You said there's no money, so that doesn't bother you because you enjoy the profession.
Yes. Helping people is something that I believe is a calling. It's not about the money. It's about making change, making an impact. And then, of course, money will come later to cover the expenses of that. So with me, I'm more interested in changing the world and how it thinks and how people, apply themselves on a day-to-day basis. It's not about making money for me.
And can I ask you, to give you an opportunity to ask me a question if you have one?
I've always wanted to meet you in life. I believe you have a story to tell. I'm here to buy a book, and
Only 360.
360. What inspired you to start a podcast in Botswana when men of your caliber are not easily accessible and they are not into, your caliber and age, of course, wouldn't be so much into technology or podcast, because what you are doing is something that we see more often in South Africa and the US and the UK. That's where you'd see men of your wisdom and age into podcast. So what inspired you in Botswana, for example, to start that?
It's an interesting question. It's funny that you ask it because we've inspired some people in South Africa to start their own podcasts after they saw us here, and they gave me that feedback. But there's a whole chapter where I talk about podcasting. I'll let you read it in the book.
Wow.
But in a nutshell, I was influenced by my children, and I'm someone who wanted to share because I previously had a radio program that is actually the longest running radio program in Botswana. It ran for 13 years, Meet the Overcomers, which was run by me initially and subsequently by a certain Rakten Mazani. So for me, it was just a progression when my children suggested this 5 years ago. And when I found that I was enjoying it because I get to learn and to find out about a lot of things from people. So for the same reason that you love your profession, you mentioned earlier, I love this engagement, this interaction, this opportunity to extract information and knowledge from people. So that is the real reason. It's both selfish and also selfless, in the sense that in the process I get to share it with so many people out there. Wow. I hope I've answered the question.
No, thank you so much for that. I believe that also buying the book would inspire me more. Definitely even buy this book before the end of this week so that I can learn more. Hopefully in time, if I do not become a little bit like you, maybe my kids would be inspired by you.
Thank you very much indeed. Take a look at this camera, the one you're facing, and leave a message of hope, of encouragement, of inspiration to the viewer.
Viewers at home, all over the world, and wherever you are, we now live in times whereby crime has increased in our society. There's are times that we need to always be vigilant, always be aware of where we are, and even social media accounts of our children, we need to always monitor them so that they do not fall for scammers, or they are not, exploited in one way or the other. We also need to always be cautious, always question things. That's the message that I can give you today. Be blessed.
Thank you very much indeed. It remains for me to thank you. But before I do, can you share all your contacts, including on social media?
Okay. Well, on social media, my name is Setlhomo Raymond Tshwanelang. That's where you'd find me on Facebook. On Instagram and TikTok, I'm not really much active, really. So on Facebook, that's where I am, because actually Botswana's population, most of them are on Facebook.
What about WhatsApp, if the people want to reach you and give you work?
Well, I use an Irish number and Botswana number, so you can always reach out on 78166505. That's my Botswana number. It's also on WhatsApp, so whenever I'm not around, it should contact me.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Cheers.